Hi, I'm Reggie Turner. I'm here with Jim Miller, and the FlipSide starts right now. Welcome to the show. Tonight we're joined by Kay Osmer, the Recreation Program Coordinator for the City of Hagerstown Parks and Recreation.
Yep, that's right.
Kay, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we have some special events that are coming up over the next year or so.
Yes, we do.
We have Maryland 250, but also our community is celebrating its 250th or commemorating its 250th anniversary. And you have a big role to play in that.
A little bit, yes, I do.
All right, well, start us off and tell us a little bit about who you are and give us an overview of what you're tasked with doing.
Sure. So I am a City of Hagerstown employee. I initially started as a part-time tour guide at the Hager House. So that's my background. I have a degree in history and came here to be a historic tour guide. I've been full-time with the Parks and Recreation Department for going on about 4 years now. So I help oversee community events, oversee some of our facilities, including the Hager House, as well as some recreation programs. So the Hager House has a very special place in my heart. And we were preparing for the America 250 celebrations coming up for 2026. And there's lots of grants opportunities coming up. And it dawned on me that I was like, oh, 1775, that's the year that Jonathan Hager died. So we're celebrating 250 years since Jonathan Hager passed away. And so this was our first grant proposal, was to put together a walking tour brochure and an event just to kind of celebrate his legacy and kind of kick off the city's America 250 events.
Excellent. So you're the spearhead behind that this entire project?
For the most part, yes. This is my brainchild.
Awesome. Jim?
What does a typical day look like for you? I know you talked about Parks and Rec and history.
Oh, sure.
What does that look like?
Oh, so I do a little bit of everything. So I help oversee our recreation programs we have in our parks and our fit room at Fairgrounds Park. So that's overseeing the development of programs, marketing and promotions online through our social media, website updates, helping with enrollment online. Then it's community events. So that's Fall Fest, the outdoor movies, the Harvest Hoedown, City Park lighting, and then managing our facilities. I directly oversee the Hager House and the City Park Train Hub in City Park.
Great. How has the attendance at events been over the last several years since COVID kind of subsided?
Sure. So some events have actually rebounded very well. Other ones, we've kind of reached our limit. City Park is one of those ones where we only have so much parking.
Yeah.
So we've kind of reached max capacity. But some of our events like Harvest Hoedown, I feel like are just as busy as ever. Whereas other events, it's still recovering. Some of our smaller events like the Dog Parade we'll have this weekend for our Halloween. Those we're still kind of building back up visitation.
So your degree is in history.
Yes, so I have a degree in history and public history.
Okay, so tell me, in Hagerstown, what have you found in your professional experience that you just go, wow, that's really cool?
Oh, a lot of it is just the legacy of the downtown and the uniqueness of some of the architecture, especially just in some of the hardscaping. You've got a really unique aesthetic to the town with all the stone work along bridges, the canals, just lots of signage that's got that beautiful limestone stonework. It's very specific to Hagerstown and I think helps give it an identity that has survived decades now. But yeah, just driving around town and seeing all the historic buildings like the National Guard building and some of the old firehouses. I'm from a smaller town that is not nearly as old. And so I love the architecture.
So you see the architecture. Hagerstown is on the move at this point. I think we can all agree. And there's a lot of new things that are happening, the Maryland Theater upgrade, the stadium. The things that you are seeing in terms of new construction, do you feel like they fit well within the old architecture and the flavor of the city?
I think they do. I think definitely the city is in the process of rebranding itself and rediscovering itself. So definitely we have moved on from the agricultural and industrial age of the 1900s and moving into more of an arts and entertainment. So a lot more investment in public sculptures, public murals, theater. So I think in that sense, adding a lot of color and art and a lot more youth and vitality to the city actually helps enable the city to grow with the next generation.
What event do you enjoy most in terms of those that you program for the City of Hagerstown over the last 4 or 7 years when you were part-time?
What is my favorite? I mean, I love City Park Fall Fest. It's one of the most annoying to coordinate, but it's just such a fun way to get everyone to come to the park. City Park is just such a beautiful and unique space with lots of cultural institutions, historic sites. It's known for the reputation of being one of the most beautiful parks in the country. And just year after year, it's so exciting to get thousands of people out into the parks and use our wonderful amenities. And it's just one of my favorite events.
Excellent.
We've talked about this several times on the show over the past year or so. But for our viewers that may have just joined us from Mars, tell them what we're commemorating and celebrating for 250 years.
Sure. So the America 250 and Maryland 250 is commemorating the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution and the signing of the Declaration of Independence. But along with that, we're celebrating the life and history of the residents and citizens that have survived all those years. The city is as old as the country, if not older. With the date of 1762 as our founding. So there's a lot of history to celebrate. Specifically with our upcoming Jonathan Hager Week festivities, we are specifically commemorating his death date. And I can go into this a little bit more. But there are a lot of things we don't know about Jonathan Hager. One of them is an official birth date. So it's hard to do like a Founding Fathers Day when we don't have a lot of specific dates, but we do know the exact day he died. So that is the specific date we'll be honoring this November to help commemorate and kick off those 2026 celebrations.
And he passed away November, 1775?
November 6, 1775.
Okay.
We are going to be in the Mummers Parade this weekend, so you'll see a float commemorating him with a kind of impersonation of Jonathan Hager and his wife Elizabeth in historical dress. And so we have a whole week of planned events and activities that are free and open to the public, and we encourage everyone to come out and celebrate the history of the city.
Now talk about some of the different areas where this event or events are going to happen.
Sure.
In Hagerstown.
So our main event will be kicking off at the Jonathan Hager House. It starts November 1st through November 8th. So on November 1st, we're going to be having a proclamation ceremony at 10:30 at the Jonathan Hager House. We'll have live music and living history. And then we are actually hosting an open house to kick off our founder's footsteps. So I wanted to bring one with me to show you. So this is the center of the project that brought us Jonathan Hager Week. I'd love to go into some more details about that if y'all are willing to listen. So this was the main project we wanted to come out of this. So if you know anything about Hagerstown, most of the history is about the Civil War. But the town did exist for 100 years prior to that in the 1700s. So this specific walking tour focuses on the era when Jonathan Hager would have lived in the town and the years following his death. So this actually will take you from the Jonathan Hager House all the way to Zion Church where he's buried. So during the open house on November 1st, you can actually visit some of the destinations on the tour. So that includes the Hager House and the church, as well as places like the the Western Maryland Room, the Miller House Museum with the Washington County Historical Society, as well as, what's our other one? Oh, the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts. So these are all places where you can learn about the history of Hagerstown or Jonathan Hager, see historic artifacts, letters, his waistcoats, things like this. So that's what kicks off on the 1st. And then our other main activity is November 6th. And we'll have a celebration of life at the church. So we'll be doing different type of ceremony there with music, psalms, and then kind of a blessing at his graveside, which we haven't done since like the 40s.
And his grave is located where?
So it's the Zion Reformed Church on the corner of North Potomac and Church Street.
It's right up from the old YMCA.
Yep,
Gotcha.
right there. So the Hub City Brewery is also on our walking tour. So if you turn the corner there, you'll see the old farmer's market, and his gravesite's right across the street.
Talk to me about what planning looked like for this event.
Sure. So the Jonathan Hager House was the main instigator of this project, and we really wanted to coordinate with Zion Church. We have a lot in common in interpreting the life and death of Jonathan Hager, so we really wanted to partner with him as well as the other historical sites in the community. So we kind of put together a committee, so that involved members from the Historical Society, the library, some of the other historic churches in the neighborhood, and we kind of got together, and that's where we decided to create a Jonathan Hager week of activity. So rather than one single day, we wanted to celebrate for a whole week. So we have lectures coming up. We have a graveyard tour coming up. I'm doing a talk on the mysteries of Jonathan Hager, all the unknown and kind of contested debates about Jonathan Hager and his life. So lots of fun things. We're even doing a genealogy workshop.
Excellent.
And where will those activities, like your genealogy workshop, where would that be?
Sure thing. So if you go to our website, hager250.org, we have a list of all our activities online. Okay. Yep. We have rack cards that are being distributed around town now. On the back side has listed all of the events. So for the most part, a lot of these are being hosted at either the Zion Reformed Church, the Washington County Free Library, or at another nearby business. But yeah, so most of the events are happening Saturday, November 1st, the Celebration of Life, November 6th at the church, and then anything else that the community is hosting, we're hoping to celebrate online at the hager250.org website or on our Facebook event.
How long have you been planning for this?
Since about February.
Really? Okay. Well, that's a lot of work to do in a relatively short period of time.
Couldn't do it without all our partners.
So you mentioned partners.
Yes.
Talk about that. What's the size of your group, and are there any partners you'd like to call out specifically? I know you said Zion.
Yes, so Zion Reformed Church was a major one. Carol Miller Schultz from the Historical Society has been a huge help. We've had a couple other people who want to help with volunteering or just reaching out with local contacts. For the most part, I'd also really like to call out our funding partner that is through the Maryland Heritage Area Authority. So we are part of the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area, and they are who granted us the grant to help fund for this walking tour and event. So without them, it really wouldn't have been much to accomplish. We've also recently decided to do some commemorative buttons. So if you do the walking tour, you'll be able to collect little mini buttons from each site. So you have a collector's item to help encourage everyone to make the journey. You can do it either by walking or driving, but we really hope everyone has a chance to explore historic Hagerstown through the eyes of the founder.
Got it. Kay, we're going to take a break right here, but we want to jump into a lot more of this.
Yeah.
And give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the things that are in there that you would like to talk about as well.
Wonderful.
All right. Stay with us, and we'll have more of the flip side after the break. Welcome back to the show. Kay, thank you for staying with us, spending time talking with us in regards to the 250th celebrations that has so many different angles. There's the county, there's the city, there's Jonathan Hager, there's the state of Maryland, and then there's the national celebration that's all kind of coming together. But from a standpoint of, you talked about your funding partners as we left, and the Civil War Heritage Area has been your funding partner to kind of kick some of these things off. Are there more grants and things that you're going after between now and 2026?
Yes, so one of our counterparts in the city, Brittany Arizmendi with the Community Engagement Office, is applying for Maryland 250 grants to coordinate some events in our 2026. I'm not sure how much of this is public knowledge or not, but we do have a time capsule that is coming up due for opening next summer. So we are looking at expanding that into almost kind of like a block party. So we can do a celebration downtown and kind of celebrate 250 years here in Hagerstown.
How old is that time capsule?
I think of 50 years. I think it was done for the bicentennial or something like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, there was one that was opened when the library did its major refurb, and there were some interesting things in that.
Yeah, we have no idea what's inside, so it's going to be real fun.
Unfortunately, there was some water damage, but apparently there's a way to freeze dry it and preserve. So I think they got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into what we talked about off camera. So we talked a little bit in regards to the walking tour.
Yep.
And you know, one of the things that I pointed out was one of the discoveries and ties to Jonathan Hager that we found in recent years was the cabin on Jonathan Street.
Yes.
But that wasn't included in the walking tour because of the logistics of how you wanted to keep the tour. But talk about that.
Sure. So I'll do a brief summary about the walking tour. So we wanted to keep it kind of short and sweet. I know there's a lot of other walking tour brochures that you open and they're these ginormous pieces of paper that really tiny print. We wanted this to be something that was very user-friendly and accessible. So this is like the abbreviated version. It's a short walk. It's a little over a mile. So like 40 minutes if you wanted to walk the whole thing. But it doesn't include all the wonderful things that downtown Hagerstown has available to it. So we did work with our City of Hagerstown GIS department in engineering, and they created a virtual tour for us so we can hit a couple extra spots and point out a couple extra unique sites, one of those being the Jonathan Street cabin. So between stop 9 and 10 online, there is some information about the Jonathan Street cabin. So that was discovered just a few years ago and restored to preserve the historic cabin that had beams dating back to Jonathan Hager's first property in 1739. So the local theory is that that house was built with timbers that might have belonged to Jonathan Hager's property on Hager's Fancy right there in City Park. So we wanted to make sure that was included and represented. The Preservation Maryland has done a wonderful job capturing that journey with the documentary. So through our online tour, you can get access to that website and that documentary, so you can learn all about the history there.
Yes. That's awesome. And for our viewers that are not aware, The House on Jonathan Street now can be streamed on Amazon.
Wonderful.
And most recently, within the last 2 weeks, The House on Jonathan Street won a Paris Film Award. So
Yeah.
it is still living on well beyond our community
Yes.
in regards to kind of bringing, shining a light on the historic value and looking at our community and specifically that community where, you know, you had your German immigrants that were there, but then it transitioned to be German immigrants and enslaved and some free African Americans, then becoming a totally African American community. So
yeah, we
the
definitely
story lives on.
we wanted to represent that neighborhood for sure. So one of the things highlighting through this is anything that would have existed around Jonathan Hager's time period. So that's roughly from when he bought Hager's Fancy in 1740 till the city's incorporation in roughly 1813, 1814.
Yes.
So that highlights some of the historic churches, and in that neighborhood is the oldest Black church here in Hagerstown. So that's all highlighted on our tour as well.
Excellent, excellent. Jim.
To walk us through the rest of the tour,
Sure.
if you would.
So we had a lovely map designed by our designer that is meant to emulate the historic plat. If anyone remembers the Washington County Historical Society fundraising to restore the historic Hagerstown plat.
Yes.
So this is inspired by that. So it's got kind of a deerskin texture to it. So our first stop is Hager's Fancy, which is the Hager House here in City Park. So we are open seasonally, but this is one of the stops you can visit on the open house tour dates. We also have the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts, who does have some collections dating back to Jonathan Hager's family. Mount Prospect is technically not a physical location, but we do encourage everyone to make the walk along Prospect Street and see the mural and the historic churches that line that street. Lovely historic neighborhood. Spot number 4 is the Miller House Museum, hosting not only the Historical Society, but the Kinship Genealogy Center. Great place for anyone who wants to look into their own family history or the history of others in the city. Great resource there. Number 5 is technically the Maryland Theater. Not everyone knows it is the old print shop belonging to the Hagerstown Town and Country Almanac. So this dates back to 1797, making it the second oldest almanac in the nation and the only one still published by direct descendants. So that's a cool part of our history.
The Maryland Theater used to be the print shop for...
Before it was the Maryland Theater, before there was a theater there.
Wow.
There is an old print shop.
That's a long time ago.
A long time ago, yes. So that's a cool thing that not a lot of people know. It's mentioned very briefly on the historic plat outside, but again, most of the history on those historic plaques are from the 1800s, not the 1700s. So this is a little piece of history we're hoping to re-inspire people to look into our colonial history before the Civil War. So that's one of those really cool, I think, little bits of information not everyone knows.
That is cool.
So we have the Washington County Free Library, just encouraging people to go to the Western Maryland Room. Another great spot if you wanted to look into local history, look at artifacts. They have the Hager Bibles there. They're supposed to be on display during Jonathan Hager Week, so we encourage everyone to come out and check that out. And they are well known for being the nation's first bookmobile in 1905, so another kind of great piece of legacy there. Number 7, the public square. So this is where the infamous Market House was located with Little High School sitting atop. You see that iconic image all over social media and some historic buildings back when it was Elizabethtown, named after his wife. City Hall, the old Farmers Market, and finally the Zion Reformed Church. So it's 10 quick stops to just help you navigate from City Park to the church where he is buried. And then we also have some other little factoids on here. Did you know that the first Hagerstown newspaper was started in 1790? It was known as the Washington Spy.
Huh.
So little tips and tricks like that. George Washington also visited Hagerstown during 1790. At the behest of 3 local citizens. On our virtual tour online, I do have a copy of the text from the invitation, so you can see the citizens' invitation and Jonathan Hager's reply to them. He spent, I think, 2 or 3 days in town, had a fancy dinner, stayed at the local Globe Inn. So our little piece of Washington reputation there, and then a little bit of information about Little High School as well.
So one question in regards to that newspaper, the first newspaper.
Yeah.
Is any of that information archived in the Western Maryland Room?
So I won't know off the top of my head if they have the full text, but I know for sure they have the index. I think a lot of it is online, and you might be able to access through their database. But they for sure can help you get that information. I want to say a local coworker of mine went to like Annapolis for the original copies, but they definitely can help you go through the index and figure out what you're looking for.
So the Maryland Archive has the original?
I think so, yes.
copies.
And I think we just have access to the database.
Gotcha.
You know, if you've not been, if our viewers have not been in the Western Maryland Room,
It's fantastic.
It is amazing. If you want to know anything about Hagerstown or Washington County, it is the vade mecum of all things Washington County, Maryland.
My first trip to the Western Maryland Room was when I was doing research on the City Park Lake anniversary. I helped coordinate that event as well. And so that was back in 2021. And yeah, I spent a good several days in there going through historic photos, postcards, digging up all the history about City Park. It was wonderful.
And I believe one of the former FlipSide hosts is now in charge of that, Elizabeth
Paul.
Yeah. She used to be on the show.
Okay.
I didn't realize that.
And of course, there was her predecessor, John, who was just, John has forgotten more about Western Maryland than most of us will ever know. But it's amazing, the resources there. And what's even more amazing is there are local For example, Dale Swope, who was an amazing photographer. He's still around, but he's retired. When he gave up his business, he had all of these photos of all these events, and he donated all the negatives and all the photos to a lot of photos and negatives to the Western Maryland room. So,
Yeah.
there are people that are making that history continue to build.
Yes.
Which is great.
On that topic, I want to throw out there. So one of the things that we are hoping, you're talking about kind of goals and, what do we want out of this event, is bringing back an interest in the local history and kind of reinvigorating kind of pride, local pride. And one of the other things we're hoping to accomplish is answering some of the mysteries. So if anyone has any long lost letters, photographs, any family history that you think might help answer any questions about Jonathan Hager, or even just the founding of Hagerstown, we would love for anyone to reach out to our organization. My email is available on the hagerstown250.org. So anyone who might have letters in an attic, or, my cousin was a cousin of so-and-so, we'd love to hear all the stories, because so much of what we know is like local legend, but we don't have any documentation.
Right.
So if we can find those letters and those journals and that mysterious portrait of him that is missing, this is one of the big mysteries. We have no known portrait or drawing or sketch of the founder. So our
you're
logo.
Trying to tell me what I've been seeing on social media is not it's not Johnny
No,
Hager?
unfortunately, that is not our historical founder. So you'll notice the logo we had made is a silhouette, because we do not know what he looked like. We have some of his old clothing, a waistcoat and such, but we have no idea what he looked like. So those are all the mysteries that we're hoping. If anyone has any clues, we are willing and to listen and gather any clues we can to solve the mysteries.
So is there a notion, and I don't want to get political here, but is there a notion that Little High School will make some sort of reappearance as we start focusing on this history, not as the logo or as part of the logo for the city?
With the city?
Yeah.
I would not be part of that conversation.
Okay.
So as far as I know, he was on display in City Hall for a few years and then was brought back to the Hager House. So this is a great plug. So we are currently in renovation at the Hager House. So anyone who's been on a tour there, you've been inside the historic house. There is also a building adjacent to it known as the Hager House Museum, built in 1962 in time for the town's bicentennial. And it had a art museum display inside from the 60s, hadn't been updated since the 1960s. So we have funding to completely revitalize it all. So we've already finished the design and the concepts and all the exhibit work, and we are currently just about to break ground on the physical renovation of the space. And then with phase 2 will be the installation of the new exhibits, and with that would be a brand new display for Little High School. So we have big plans for a very primo display for Little High School. Beyond that, I have not been part of that conversation.
No, and again, I'm not. I'm not expecting that he will reappear as he was in the past, but I think it's part of our history.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Little High School is definitely going anywhere. He is the unofficial symbol of the town. His iconography is all over.
Yep.
That made the joke that it's almost like a hide and seek of how many little high schools can you find in downtown Hagerstown, because he's everywhere. So I don't think he's on our city flag, which is celebrating its 70th anniversary this year. Did you know? We adopted the flag in 1955.
Huh.
So
I
it's
did
the
not know that.
70th anniversary, which features Little High School. So I don't think he's going anywhere. As far as what his future has in store for him, I think that's...
1955, that would have been Mayor Burhan's?
That sounds correct. I think his wife actually sewed, it's on our website, that she sewed and built the first flag.
Okay.
Wow. A lot of intersections going on.
Yes.
All right, so that's a tease because we want to jump into more, but I have to stop right now before Jim goes into another question. So let's take a quick break and come back. Stay with us. We'll have more with Kay Osmer from the City of Hagerstown after the break. Welcome back to the show. Kay, let's jump right back in. We're talking about history. We're talking about preservation of our history. These are right up my alley, so this is things that I love to talk about. But let's talk about the community engagement and inclusion piece. I mean, we talked on air and off air in regards to how the Johnson Street community is being incorporated into this for inclusion in regards to what that community's contributions have been and kind of, what the cabin does. But tell me a little bit about the engagement with the community. How has that been thus far? And what do you see of the walking tour in regards to, of numbers? What is your expectation of those types of things?
Sure. So like we talked about a little bit earlier, COVID has definitely, I think, changed certain things. So with our community events, turnout can always be a little bit unpredictable and so weather dependent. So this is an outdoor event in November. So if it's a cold, wintry week, our walking tour turnout could be a lot slower than expected. The other thing that we initially were conceptualizing a guided walking tour experience, but the problem with this walking tour that I totally concede is it is not a loop. So if you wanted to walk the whole thing, you got to make all the way back through like the cultural trail to get back to your car. So we are expecting some people probably to park in City Park, walk around and do some things, move their car maybe downtown and explore and do some things. So that alone could also change how people do the tour and show up, depending on how they're planning their day, what is a priority for them to visit. If they're like, I've toured the Hager house before, but I've never visited his gravesite. Maybe that's their number one stop and the only thing they prioritize. So we are definitely leaving this open. We, like I said, want this to be a free and accessible week to the entire community. So none of our planned events that we are advertising has an admission. We want this to be in everyone's activity and have some ownership, that they are welcome to all of these events and they can learn a little bit about our colonial history, or if this reinvigorates their other historic components you mentioned with historic Jonathan Street, studying the people who lived in our community, before the Civil War and what their lives were like. A lot of that documentation is unknown, so more archaeology, more family research can only help answer those questions and hopefully get more community pride. And we've been around more than the Civil War, so I just want to remind people, there were people in this community well before that, and we should draw some attention.
I can see a lot of folks getting hung up at the Hub City Brewery.
Oh yeah, so they actually,
that might be a last stop.
They actually have a beer that I don't know how long it's been on their menu, but we're helping promote. It's the Hager's Demise Red Ale. So you can get a Hager's Demise right across the street from his graveyard.
Nice.
Now,
is there going to be a ceremony at his gravesite?
Yes, so that's the November 6th.
Okay.
The church will be leading a celebration of life, so a very traditional. It is not a religious event, but it will have different psalm readings and some music. And then we're planning to have a couple speakers just to talk about his life and legacy for the community, followed by a graveside blessing. Again, it is an outdoor event in November, and it is a quite steep walk to his graveside. So if no one if there are people who are unwilling to follow up the grass hill, they will have some rooms available where we can have the windows open so you can kind of follow along from inside. And all of these events that are at the church, for the most part, are planned to be live streamed as well. So there will be some availability to watch from home.
And the live stream will be on the city's?
Yes, so they do a service on Sunday that will be live from their website that will be sharing through the city website, but the November 6th ceremony, for sure, you will be able to get that link through the website.
Okay. And those show on Antietam Cable as well, correct?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Okay.
I'm not sure about
I
that.
do not know off the top of my head.
Okay.
How's the community responded so far? What's been the response, the reaction, the interest?
It is still being rolled out. So I was hoping for an earlier kind of summer promotion, but finalizing the walking tour, finalizing the virtual tour, it all was very much delayed. So we're doing a hard push now just in the month before. So feedback has still been a little slow. We've definitely had overwhelmingly positive response of, oh my gosh, this is so great. We haven't done anything like that since, the bicentennial, or just so excited to do anything regarding our historic sites. And then I also know there's some other less thrilled, again, we're harping on history and, there's more important things to worry about in current events, which is true. But I think there's a lot we can learn from history. And so knowing what we've been through and what is special and unique about our community, one of the things I love about Jonathan Hager is the claim that he was the first naturalized citizen in Maryland to serve political office. So he was a German immigrant, and at the time only English-born citizens were supposed to be able to hold office, but he won by popular vote, and the Assembly agreed to overturn the law and let him serve, and then he was reelected again. And I just think that's such a unique way to look at our community, that even though he technically wasn't allowed and was considered, not an English citizen, he was able to rise up and serve his community of immigrants, essentially. So I think that's really important to know about our community, that, we are a unique immigrant community, kind of starting with that German legacy and then building in other ways throughout the decades and centuries. Yeah.
But I'm always inspired by people like Jonathan Hager, that you read the history and you realize what life was like back then, and the things that we take for granted.
Yeah.
And the things that he was able to accomplish. Just look at the house alone, right? And the notion of keeping the water going through the basement so you didn't have attacks by whomever. I mean, all of those things and all of the things that he accomplished. It really makes you rethink what you're doing. And
So he was a very motivated individual. He owned over 10,000 acres of land throughout his lifetime. He served on a lot of different committees. He was very engaged in building kind of the economy here in Washington County. He served,
making it the hub city.
He served on a committee to start what became the C&O Canal. So he definitely was a forward-thinking individual. I feel like he and his wife probably had their own issues at home. They were married for several years and only had 2 children that survived to adulthood. And their firstborn, I think it was like 11 years into their marriage. So I'm sure they had their own struggles out on the frontier back in the 1740s and 50s. So there's a lot to learn about and be inspired by.
What does engagement look like with schools and youth groups? I know, like with the city, you have your youth council, and then you have the school system and the private schools. Like, what's that engagement look like?
So that's one of the areas I can say for sure. Parks and Recreation does our best to support and engage with those areas, but that has looked different since COVID. We don't get near as many like school tours to City Park as we used to. I feel like other departments within the city reach out with their own engagement. You mentioned the Youth Council. There are definitely avenues for local groups. We work a lot with like the BISFA groups and some of the other high schools, using them for volunteers with their bands or their art clubs, things like that. But I can say for sure we are a small department, and we can only take on so many roles at a time.
Small but mighty, right?
So that is definitely a place where we can grow, and it definitely takes a lot of partnership and just planning to execute a good, strong vision, because we would love to host more schools for tours. The City of Hagerstown Parks and Recreation Department does not charge for field trips to our sites. So if a school group from the city or the county wanted to come and visit the Hager House or the City Park Train Hub, we do not charge. It's just the scheduling and communicating and making sure we can get it on their calendar and coordinate. Do they have all the buses? It just takes a lot of time and energy that we don't always have at the moment.
Understood. And then the other side of partnerships, and obviously, from a historic standpoint, the new Hub City Brewery is kind of, they're right in the middle. But what about the other downtown businesses? Is that your engagement, or would that be more of Brittany's engagement in regards to those businesses?
Yeah, so Brittany Ayers-Mendy with the Community Engagement Office would definitely take the lead on that. So she oversees the Main Street division of downtown Hagerstown.
Right.
So she, for the most part, is their advocate and their communications. So she helps tie them all in together when we have downtown events, or notify them of things that might inhibit their business, if that means closing a road down, or, we're working on rebuilding sidewalks, this sidewalk's going to be closed. That's more Brittany's department. Yes.
So I see with this history a challenge. So most of us know our community is a Civil War town. and this effort is really trying to expand to talk about the long breadth of history before we even get to the Civil War. That
our origins, yeah.
Right. A lot of those origins still, the story is still a bit loose. So when you're not just talking to history buffs,
yeah,
how do you craft the story to galvanize people that this is just not their natural fit to be involved in?
Well, one of the ways I try when I used to be a tour guide at the Hager House to get people to kind of care and understand is before industry, so many things were handmade, and it was passion and survival instincts. So not having internet, not having electricity, having to grow your own food, sometimes make your own cloth, making furniture, all these things. It was just a completely different lifestyle that
Yes.
I try to get people to envision, what would you do if every morning you had to go and, feed the chickens and trim the candle wicks and empty the chamber pots, and think back to those days in the 1700s, and just what would be different about your life, and what kind of legacy do we want to leave behind. Just anything to try and inspire people to pull them out of the chaos of today. There's so many different things pulling us in different directions, and to try and think back to, the days before the internet. And so, yeah, that's all I can think to do, is to try and just inspire people to think back to their roots, their family history, and, if you lived a harder life, what would inspire you and what would be your passion? And, would that be arts? Would that be the military? Would that be farming? Yeah, just to try and put people in a different perspective.
I definitely agree with that approach. I mean, even, from my perspective.
Especially if you've got third graders on a tour. You're like,
Yes.
imagine if you didn't have video games. And
Right.
yeah.
Right. And it's hard, right? And it depends on the age of the group in regards to what may resonate with them. I just remember from walking in the little cabin on Jonathan Street, and there is an upstairs, but I never ventured to go up there because my shoulders were too broad.
These were like 3-room houses.
Right.
Their whole life was in 3 rooms.
And a full family would stay in something that's less than 700 square feet, like a full family. So could you imagine in the wintertime when you're not outside and everyone is in this small space? Like, it is hard to imagine those spaces. I think the value is when we look at today, because, depending on where you are politically, like, the world is falling apart and everything's just going horribly. But I always look at what my ancestors went through as opposed to what I go through, and I have it gravy.
Yeah, maybe the world isn't that horrible,
I will
is
take
it?
internet and air conditioning over a lot of other things.
Yeah, how can you live without Siri?
Oh, I live
mean,
without Siri.
I have a personal computer that I can complain on and
Exactly.
express my freedom of speech, even in regards to how well or how horribly my football team is playing. So, like, how bad is it really for me?
Yeah. So you mentioned the C&O Canal. There was a book printed, and I won't mention the book, but there was a book printed about an account of a local resident and his experience on the C&O Canal, which has been challenged as being historically inaccurate by people that should know. My question to you is, how do you ensure historically accurate storytelling? And how do you ensure that?
So this is where my formal training in history, I have to be very careful with what I say to some people because, like I spoke about earlier, there are lots of things that are local legend that have been written in books 100 years ago, but didn't have any sources documented of where they got that information. And so I'm very careful when I work there to say, we believe, or some research has said, because there are a lot of things that are just unknown. A lot of it's just hearsay or stories that have been repeated for over 100 years. So I do my best to find the documents, historic documents. I'll allude to this with our research at the Hager House. So Mary Vernon Mish is the kind of architect behind the Hager House Restoration Project. She was a local judge's wife and was very into historic preservation. And she wrote a book about the founder. And many years later, a lot of the sources she used were found to be inaccurate. So back in the 90s, the curator at the time, John Nelson, said, you know what, I'm going to go back and redo some of her research. So he tried to do his best to find actual hard documentation to either support her claims or refute. And so I use Nelson very much as our historic Bible to answer a lot of questions, but there is definitely more research to be done. There was some research that was done back in the 30s and the 40s about surveys and property lines and things like that I'm sure could use some updating 100 years later with GIS and all those technologies. But I'm sure, like I said, finding additional journals, letters, things written in family Bibles, things like that might answer a few more questions that we have unknown.
Interesting.
All right. Kay, we're going to keep you for one more segment. We're going to look at some of the key dates again to make sure we talk about those and kind of the path ahead, right? Because you're just wrapping up 2025.
Yes.
You have 2026,
We have all of 2026,
Six to work through. So let's talk about that after the break.
All right.
Stay with us, and we'll have more of the flip side after the break. Welcome back to the show. We're still with Kay Osmer from the City of Hagerstown talking about Jonathan Hager, the 250th anniversary of pretty much everything around here. Thank you for staying with us. We've talked about this, but I want to hammer home. Let's talk about some of the key dates and things that are happening. I know that you have November, and then kind of dream forward for us dates to mark next year.
Yeah, so with Hagerstown Parks and Recreation, we are planning a Living History Day at the Jonathan Hager House, June 6th. So we'll be stepping back into kind of 1775 or 1776, again, kind of the kickoff of the American Revolution and celebrating kind of what Hagerstown would have been like during that time period. We also have our annual fireworks celebration, which will be on Saturday next year. I believe it's on Saturday because the county will be doing their demonstration for the 250th on July 4th. And then our City Park Fall Fest will have a special America 250, Maryland 250 theme. And we do fireworks now in City Park there as well. So multiple opportunities for fireworks.
So the July 4th celebration is at the Fairgrounds Park, is that true?
So our city fairgrounds is always our fireworks demonstration, but I believe the Ag Center will be hosting July 4th next year for the county.
Right, okay,
yes.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Got it.
So they'll be doing a big fair and celebration there.
And those will be different dates.
Yes, yes. So the county specifically asked for July 4th because they are also celebrating their 250th. Yes. So their committee has been doing wonderful things promoting that event. I see them at different conferences with their marketing campaign online, and looks so fun and fantastic.
Now, what is the connection between you and the county? Obviously, you've coordinated on dates at least, but are they involved in your planning, or how does that work?
Not too much. So we've kept very close knit with just the downtown organization, specifically for the Jonathan Hager. But we have definitely given invitations to the county and welcome to partner with us. We definitely have had to do a lot of coordinating on events next year.
Sure.
So that's, again, more Brittany Arizmendi's wheelhouse, working with the county as the community engagement officer.
Great.
Does your group, are you working with Visit Hagerstown at all, or is that Brittany's group that?
So we do. Since we are a more heritage tourism facility, we do work a lot with the Visitors Bureau. So they definitely helped us with the development of this. Some of the information from this walking tour was pulled directly from their previous brochures. Yes. Some of the photographs they previously selected, we reutilized. So they definitely were a backbone in getting this created, and I will be a partner going forward with these future events.
And for our viewers, if they want to follow up with any of this information, they would go to the city's website.
Yes.
Right?
So if you go to hager250.org, it does link to the city's website. It'll bring you right to the Jonathan Hager Week page. So that has the list of all the schedule of events, an online version of the walking tour brochure, and the virtual tour. Our sponsors are on there. We also have a list of some available merch regarding Hagerstown. So the Washington County Historical Society has a really great gift shop. So we want to help promote all the local historic sites and just really get downtown buzzing this November.
So you're at this point filled up with sponsors. Is that a true statement? Or
So we, this particular event does not really have too many paid sponsorships. They're more community partners. Parks and Recreation is always looking for sponsors. They usually go toward our specific community events. So for the most part, almost all of Parks and Recreation's events are free to the public. So City Park Fall Fest, City Park Lighting, the Harvest Hoedown, our outdoor movie series. So we always are looking for sponsorships to help fund all of those events and keep them free and open to the public.
how will the city measure success on this 250th anniversary series of celebrations?
So I would pray we give out almost every single brochure that is printed. I would love to be required to do a reprint. So I think we have 5,000 printed right now. We have, I mentioned, the float in the Mummers Parade coming up this Saturday. So we really just want to get the word out. We'd love to have people come to the events throughout the week, and we would love to have a presence at the Celebration of Life, but again, it is going to be available online with a live stream. So if it's cold and wintry and no one wants to get out, we completely understand that. But I really hope people make the journey, and if we can get some good visitor counts, both this November and next spring around the July 4th festivities to reinvigorate interest in these historic sites and museums and like the Western Maryland Room. So we'll be tracking visitor counts and seeing how many of these we can actually give out to the community.
With your different events, do you catalog, like demographically, what do you look at? So is it just the numbers, or are you looking at if an individual is from the city, the county, out of state? I mean, do you look at those type of things?
It depends. So the county is, I shouldn't say the county, the Visitors Bureau is really good about looking at numbers more from the like hotel tax situation. So they can follow who's renting rooms, who's, spending time in restaurants. From ours, because we are a mostly free, we have no way to track people's like zip codes. Like they can write their name in the guest book, but sometimes it's really hard to gauge that if they're just walking around at a free community event.
Right.
So we are more observational, looking at who turns out and who can give us feedback. So sometimes that's anecdotal. You're always welcome to reach out to us if you have any feedback on our events. We're always looking to improve our community events and make them as fun and accessible to the public as we can. We have a lot of pride in our community events, and we only want to make them better. So we're always open to open feedback. But yeah, because we can't really track credit card purchases and things like that, a lot of it is anecdotal feedback.
So you have obviously put a lot of work into this. There's apparently a lot of additional research and collection and organization of materials. How does the work that you have performed, how do the documents that you've created, how do they survive? How do they impact the future after all of the celebrations are complete for the 250th?
Yeah.
What's your hope there?
Yes. So we'll obviously have the hard copies that will kind of be archived, and then we hope to have a virtual presence of them long term. A lot of the historic plaques and things that are around town are starting to get dated, and so I would hope we could reinvigorate them and maybe even add some new ones that might include some of this information, expanding the downtown plaques beyond the Civil War, and use some of that new city branding we have to make it a little bit more colorful and just kind of telling a more well-rounded story of the city.
Generally speaking, how important is Parks and Recreation to the city? What is the impact of your department?
I think we have a huge contribution to the community, especially when you're looking at downtown. Some of the streets we live in, but nearby our offices in Fairgrounds Park, don't have backyards or front yards, and you don't realize how many people come to walk their dogs in City Park or Fairgrounds Park and use the dog park. You don't realize how many people come to use the playground equipment or want to ride their bikes or looking just for some indoor activities. And lots of people do use the county Parks and Rec as well, but there are some people who they really do want something that's just around the corner, and Hagerstown Parks and Rec kind of helps fill that with these local events and programs, and we want to be as accessible as possible.
And even the small open space parks that are around the city. I mean, there's a lot of them.
There
right?
are a lot of them. You don't realize how many small, what we'll call like pocket parks are, but even having the golf course. I mean, I know we have Black Rock not too far down the road, but what's great about the greens at Hamilton Run golf course is you don't need a tee time. So if it's a Thursday afternoon and you leave work early, you can come over and just see if you can get a round in or not. So there's just a lot more accessibility for the local community. The pool is still very important to the local neighborhoods because for a lot of them, it's within walking distance. It serves their community and their neighborhood, and we want to keep those facilities up and running and in good shape for the citizens of the community.
Thank you.
Excellent. Kay, thank you for your time tonight. Excellent information. I would imagine we'll probably have you back next year as the
absolutely
as the big part of the
we'll
celebrations
see,
ramp up. But you are a great advocate for all that you do with City Parks and Rec, so thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that is all the time that we have for tonight. We hope that you'll like us on Facebook, follow us on X, and send us your comments to feedback@theflipsidetv.com. That is feedback@theflipsidetv.com. But more importantly, join us again next week for another episode of